Okay, hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's training, Getting Started, Assigning User Roles. This is the 9th webinar in a series of Passport vendor trainings. Today we'll begin by talking about MOCS and its purpose. Then we'll think about what user roles are and why they're important. After that, we'll review the most common user roles in more detail before showing you how to assign and stack user roles with a live in-system demonstration. Finally, we'll share resources to help you use Passport and get stuff done. The Mayor's Office of Contract Services, also known as MOCS, leads procurement for New York City. We serve as an oversight and service agency dedicated to making it easier to do business with the city. To learn more about MOCS, the city's fiscal spending on procurement, and the procurement process overall, you can watch the recording of our Finding Opportunities webinar, which is posted on our website, nyc.gov/passport. Let's take a broad look at the importance of user roles before we get into the details. The procurement and the city contracting process can be complicated. Passport is a wonderful tool, but nothing gets done without people. User roles define what Passport users can and cannot do and how their privileges work together. Organizations must determine which tasks each user will perform. Some users may need to have general privileges or very specific ones that are based on a single contract. User roles can be either global or local. Global user roles can access and work across all tasks in Passport for the organization. Local user roles are usually tied to a specific team response, such as a response to a specific agency request or a specific contract. Local roles are a huge benefit for vendors, especially for large organizations that may want to restrict who can work on certain RFX responses or contracts. Now that we know a little more about user roles, Karen will discuss them in more detail.
Okay, so let's learn about the user roles in Passport and the privileges that go along with them. To begin with, every organization member who needs to work on a task in Passport is called a contact, and every contact needs a NICE ID. It's spelled NYC.ID, but it's pronounced NICE ID. A NICE ID is a single sign-on login that is used in Passport and in other city agency applications. All contacts must log into Passport with the same email address that was used when they were added to the organization's Passport account. This should also be the same email address used to create your NICE ID. And every contact must be assigned at least one user role to be able to work in Passport. The most powerful and global role is that of the vendor admin. Vendor admins have the most privileges and are key participants in almost all processes in Passport. The role of vendor admin is automatically assigned to the person who made the original request for an organization's Passport account. To prevent account access issues, the original vendor admin should assign at least one other contact to the vendor admin role. Vendor admins are the only users who can add and remove contacts, as well as assign user roles to each contact. Roles can be stacked though, and each contact can have multiple roles. Vendor admins are required for organizations to support submission of the vendor enrollment package. Vendor admins enter information, click the Check Progress button, and submit the enrollment package to MOCS. They can complete the HHS pre-qualification application. They complete, sign, and submit the PQL application. They can respond to RFX. RFX are invitations or solicitations issued by city agencies inviting vendors to respond to various contracting opportunities. These responses can include acknowledging the RFX, entering information, submitting, or canceling a response. And vendor admins are also needed to complete contract award tasks, including setting up the team and submitting documents. Furthermore, vendor admins can manage and maintain the organization's account, which includes initiating, editing, and submitting change requests. They can manage and maintain contracts, which includes creating and canceling invoices and other budget modifications. They can enroll organizations in commodities. That's telling the city what goods and services your organization offers. And they can disclose business certifications, such as MWBE, which stands for Minority or Women-Owned Business Enterprises. So let's think about how this might work in a real-world situation. Listen to the question and the possible answers carefully, and then enter the number of your chosen response in the chat. Rainforest Technologies is interested in providing software services for the Department of City Planning. Teresa is the vendor admin at Rainforest Technologies. How should she assign additional vendor admin roles to members of her team? Option 1. For security reasons, Teresa should be the only vendor admin. Option 2. Teresa should assign the role of vendor admin to every person in her organization so that they can all work together on the contract. Or option 3. Teresa should assign at least one other person to be vendor admin so that it is easy to keep track of changes, but there is always someone who can access the account. Right? You've got a few seconds to enter your option in the chat. All right, I'm seeing a bunch of correct answers. Congratulations. Option 3 is best. While there should be more than one vendor admin, Teresa should still follow the principle of least authorizations. This means that users only have the permissions needed to complete their job in Passport. This helps to reduce inadvertent errors. Signatories should be members of your organization who have the authority to sign on behalf of it. Signatories are required for vendor organizations to enroll in Passport. They have the power to review, sign, and submit the vendor enrollment package. Signatories are also needed for organizations to submit change requests or certificates of no change. A change request is a process for changing your organization's basic information and disclosures in Passport after the vendor enrollment package has been filed. A certificate of no change is needed with every new contract or every 3 years. It just confirms that the organization's information in Passport is correct and that no changes are needed. Similarly, the vendor contract signatory must have the authority to sign contracts with the city on behalf of the organization. They are also required for completion of contract award tasks. They need to review and sign the contract between their organization and the city for it to be registered with the Comptroller's office. For nonprofits who are applying for City Council discretionary funding, a vendor contract signatory is needed for that process as well. The roles of vendor admin, signatory, and vendor contract signatory are mandatory. You will not be able to complete fundamental work in Passport without these 3 roles. As mentioned earlier, User roles can be stacked, so a single proprietor acting as a vendor admin would have to assign themselves all three of these roles. Note that signatory is not the same as vendor contract signatory. Signatories are key to the vendor enrollment process, and the vendor contract signatories deal with the contractual processes in Passport. So let's look at another real-world example. Remember to wait for all the answer choices before putting the number in the chat. Rachel is the single proprietor of Mama's Bakery Delights and wants to supply baked goods to the Department of Corrections. She is automatically given the user role of vendor admin and assigns herself as a vendor contract signatory. What important task will Rachel not be able to complete unless she gives herself another user role? Rachel won't be able to respond to RFX from the Department of Corrections, complete Passport vendor enrollment, or 3, enroll in commodities. Take a few seconds to enter your choice in the chat. Awesome. The answer is number 2. Rachel will not be able to enroll as a vendor in Passport until she assigns a signatory. Signatories are needed to sign and complete the Passport vendor enrollment package. Next, we will review other user roles that may be helpful to assign to your contacts, depending on the circumstances. The vendor procurement roles are specialized positions that handle the procurement process for the vendor organization. Their work usually involves the response to opportunities and completing contract award tasks. There are 2 levels to the vendor procurement roles, and Level 2, L2, has more privileges and responsibilities. Let's look at 4 major tasks in Passport and examine some of the differences between vendor procurement L1 and vendor procurement L2. Note that the extra L2 privileges are in bold. Most of the additional L2 privileges concern reviewing, signing, and submitting needed information to MOCS on behalf of the vendor organization. When it comes to contract award tasks, the L2 can also complete the LL34 compliance tab, which we'll discuss next. The 2 roles that can complete the LL34 compliance tab are the vendor admin and the vendor procurement level 2. So what is that? LL34, or Local Law 34 of 2007, is New York City's campaign finance law. It limits the municipal campaign contributions from principal owners, officers, and senior managers of organizations that do business with the city. LL34 also mandates the creation of a doing business database that allows the city to enforce the law. The LL34 compliance tab allows the vendor admin or vendor procurement L2 to complete and submit all doing business data information within Passport. The vendor financial roles are specialized positions that handle the financial aspects of a specific contract. There are 2 levels to the vendor financial role, with L2, level 2, having more responsibilities and privileges. Both can participate in responding to an RFX. The vendor financial L1 can edit and submit responses, but an L2 can create, edit, submit, and cancel a response. When it comes to invoicing, L1s can view invoices, invoice deductions, and reconciliation requests, but they cannot create or change any of them. L2s, though, can view, create, or edit invoices, invoice deductions, and reconciliation requests. L2s can also manage contracts by making budget modifications. They can also create, edit, and submit purchase order change requests. Contributors are at the other end of the user role spectrum from vendor admins. Where vendor admins have a wide range of privileges and are required for most passport processes, the contributor roles is optional and has the fewest privileges in passport. For the most part, contributors enter information during passport processes, such as vendor enrollment. They play more of a role in an organization's response to RFX, but for the most part, they do not initiate or submit anything to MOCS on their own. Contributors can also enroll their organization in commodities and disclose the organization's business certifications. So here are some best practices and reminders for assigning and managing user roles. MOCS recommends that the original vendor admin assign at least one other contact the vendor admin role to prevent account access issues. Each contact should successfully log into Passport at least once before trying to work within it. This helps to make sure that the information within Passport is correct. Review and update user roles regularly, particularly if there is a staff change or a new RFX response. Vendors must verify their business information each time they are awarded a new contract or every 3 years anyway, so it's good to get into the updating habit. Please do not assign too many user roles to too many people. Instead, follow the principle of least authorizations so that users only have the permissions needed to complete their job in Passport. Again, this helps to reduce inadvertent errors. And finally, while the same person can be a signatory and a vendor contract signatory, these roles are not the same. Next, we'll hear from Amanda, who will walk you through the process of adding and assigning user roles in Passport.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Amanda, and we're going to talk about how to assign, change, and delete user roles in Passport, and then we'll go through a live system demonstration. So we'll assume that you already have a NICE ID, but if you don't, you can visit the Getting Started page on our nyc.gov/passport website. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Okay, so just a quick note that any of the screenshots that you see in this presentation, they display the current functionality of Passport, and any future versions of Passport might look a bit different, so just keep that in mind. So first you're going to log into Passport by clicking the blue login button, and you'll enter your NICE ID and email address or your NICE ID email address and your password in the login fields. And then you're going to click login. So this must be your NICE ID email address and password. This is what you've used to set up your Passport account. So after logging into Passport, you're going to see the vendor homepage, and you'll notice that the Passport logo is on the top left side of the screen. And clicking that logo is always going to take you back to this main homepage. This logo is visible from every screen in Passport. You also have some widgets on your homepage, and these are helpful if you want to quickly access your vendor contacts, see your vendor profile, enroll in commodities, browse RFX, and so on and so forth. These widgets may change position on your screen based on your browser window or screen resolution. So keep that in mind as well. But for today, we're going to select the vendor contacts widget, and this links to the contacts tab in your vendor profile. Okay. So the contacts tab allows the vendor admin to add, delete, and manage contacts,
This is also the place where the vendor admin assigns user roles. So to add a contact, you're going to click the button that says Add a new contact, and this will open up a contact management box. The vertical red lines show required fields. So you must enter a first name, a last name, and an email address for any contact that you add. And once you finish entering that information, you're going to go ahead and click Save and Close at the top of that page. So once a contact has been added, the vendor admin can assign them user roles. Passport refers to these user roles as profiles. So if you want to assign a profile to a contact, you're going to find their name in the contact list and open the drop-down that appears next to the contact's email address. From there, you can select the user role or profile that you want to assign to that contact. And you can repeat the process until you've finished assigning roles for that contact. To remove a user role, you're going to click the X next to that user role in the same row as the contact's name, and then click Save at the bottom of that contact column, or click Save and Refresh at the top of the page. Passport does time out after 20 minutes of inactivity, so we recommend hitting that Save button as often as possible. If you want to edit a contact's basic information, such as their name or email address, not their email address, but their address, you're going to find the name in your list of contacts and then click the pencil icon in the same row as the contact's name. This is going to open another contact management box in which you can edit that information. And just a note that you cannot change the contact's email address this way. So remember to click Save and Close when you're done. So if a vendor admin wants to delete a contact, you're going to find their name in the list of contacts and then click the X in the same row as the contact's name, which is right next to the pencil that we just clicked on previously. You'll get a system message that'll ask you to confirm the deletion, and you'll just click OK. And again, remember to save your work. So now I'm just going to go into a live system demonstration of what we just went through. And give me a moment as I can change my screen or bring it up for you. Okay, so you should now see that I'm logged into Passport and I'm on the Passport homepage. So I'm going to show you how to assign roles to yourself and other contacts, as well as how to remove roles. And I'll also go over how to select your LL34 contacts. So again, I'm currently logged into Passport and I'm on the Passport homepage. And from here, I can either click into the vendor contacts widget, and that'll take me to the contacts page, or I can go up to the top navigation and click on profile, vendor profile, and then over to the side tabs, click on contacts. So we're now in the contacts tab. And as you can see, I am logged in as a user with the vendor admin role. So in order to complete all tasks in Passport, I really only need 3 roles, which is the vendor admin role, the signatory role, and the vendor contract signatory role. So let's say I'm a small business or maybe a sole proprietor, and I'm the only person who's going to be managing all tasks related to my business in Passport. In that case, I can add all 3 of those roles to myself. And that's one great thing about Passport is that you can add as many roles as you like, and you don't need to add more contacts than necessary to complete in-system tasks. So I'm going to go ahead and add signatory and vendor contract signatory. And once I've done that, I'm going to click Save and Refresh at the top to save my changes. Okay. So if you're in the position where you have a larger organization and you want to add multiple people from your organization to work on different tasks, what you're going to do first is add them as a contact. So I'm just going to scroll over to the right and click the Add a New Contact button. That opens up the contact management box, and I'll be required to enter this contact's first name, last name, and email address. You're going to do that for every contact that you add. Okay, so once you've entered that information, you can go ahead and click Save and Close. So now that I've added my contact, I can give them a user role. And I just want to make a quick note that as you're adding new contacts to Passport, each new contact will need to create a NICE ID so that they can log into the system. If they do not create a NICE ID, they won't be able to log in and complete any tasks. So that's an important step. And you do want to reach out to them directly after you've added them because they will not receive a notification that you've added them to your contacts list. Okay. So I've added a new contact. And how do I decide that or which user role I want to give this person? So this depends on what tasks the person will be responsible for completing in the system. Right? So let's say that I'm the only person that's going to be managing my organization's account, and I just want this person to specifically manage my city contracts. That includes responding to contracting opportunities, uploading contract documents, or just signing contracts on my behalf. In that case, maybe I don't want to give them a vendor admin role because I want to limit their access to the vendor account. Instead, I can give them the vendor procurement L2 role, and that'll allow them to respond to RFX and upload those contracting documents. But if I want them to sign my contracts as well, I need to give them the vendor contract signatory role. And you can configure the roles as needed for each contact. And once you're done uploading or adding all of your contacts and adding all of those user roles, you can click Save and Refresh to save your information. If I want to delete a user role, I'm just going to click the X right next to the role that I added. Now it's gone, and I'll click Save. Simple as that. Okay. So one more thing I also want to go over is how to identify your LL34 contacts in your vendor profile. So we briefly went over LL34. That's Local Law 34, which is the New York City's campaign finance law, which limits municipal campaign contributions from principal owners, officers, and senior managers for organizations that do business with the city. And this is required for any organization that plans to enter into a business transaction with the city. So to do that, first, I need to add them as a contact and then select them as an LL34 contact in my contacts tab. So I already have 2 contacts here, so I'm not going to add any additional, but I can select them as an LL34 contact. There's 2 ways to do that. First, from this page, there's an LL34 contact column I'm going to click the checkbox to select that person as an LL34 contact. And then in this positions column, I can select CEO, CFO, COO, principal owner, or senior manager. Now, if you do not have a CEO, a CFO, COO, but you may have an equivalent, such as a president, maybe a treasurer, vice president, something like that, you will select whatever that equivalent is. So president, I'm going to select CEO. My second contact is already listed as an LL34 contact, and they're listed as a COO. I selected that because they're my vice president. And once you do that, you click Save. The second way to select your LL34 contact is to click on this edit icon, the pencil icon here. That's going to open up the contact management box. And on this page, you're going to click LL34 contact. Click that checkbox, and you'll be required to enter the position here. And it's the same selections as before: CEO, CFO, COO, principal owner, or senior manager. And you can choose multiple positions if they hold multiple positions in your company. You will also be required to enter their date of birth. If it's not already listed there, you'll have to enter it manually. And then lastly, you'll be required to enter a title. So this person is my vice president. I've entered vice president in the title field. Once you've completed all of those fields, you can click Save and Close. And then again, you can either just click Save or click Save and Refresh at the top of the page. So that concludes the live demonstration, and I'm going to hand it back to Brooke so she can go over resources and next steps.
The two major websites you can use to get information about MOCS and Passport are the Passport page, nyc.gov/passport, and the MOCS help page, nyc.gov/MOCShelp. These two pages will allow you to access everything you need regarding Passport, especially the resources for assigning and managing contacts and user roles. To get to our Passport website directly, you only need to type in the address nyc.gov/passport. From there, you can access the Learning to Use Passport page from the left-hand navigation. At the top of the Learning to Use Passport page, you can learn about our in-person workshops and see recordings of our other webinars. The recording of this webinar will be available there too. The Learning to Use Passport page has a wide variety of user manuals, quick guides, and videos to help walk you through how to use Passport. These are organized by topic and module. The resources for assigning and managing user roles can be found under Vendor Account and Enrollment Management. If you are still having trouble with Passport, you can go to the MOCS help page. The MOCS help page, nyc.gov/MOCShelp, is meant to assist users with MOCS applications. This help page lists all the logins to the applications we support: Passport and HHS Accelerator, as well as FAQ, frequently asked questions, and learning materials. At the bottom of the MOCS help page, you will also find the link to reach out to our MOCS service desk, mentioned at the beginning of this webinar. All right, thank you, Amanda and Karen, for presenting today. Thank you for your time, everyone, and for attending this webinar. Please remember to complete the survey so that we can make our events more relevant to you. Goodbye.